All right, Battletech enthusiasts, or I should say, new Battletech enthusiasts. There's been a lot of Battletech activity. Part of it is the new release of the models. Part of it is players from other wargaming systems looking and saying, hey, I'm feeling this Battletech thing. I'm being pulled into the narrative. Let me check it out. So as I've been posting to my channel here, I've been trying to mine through the comments and the feedback to pull out some crossover Q&A, because I realize if you're coming from another wargaming system, there are certain assumptions with how the system operates, or you get used to the idea of certain factions or building lists or tactics. And Battletech really is a massive narrative. It's a very massive war game with a lot of options. Now, that's amazing when you jump in and you find your player personality and what you like. Open sandbox is fantastic. But I do realize making that jump from the starter set, the Game of Armored Combat starter set, into freeform Battletech, whether that's in Classic or in Alpha Strike or other venues, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm hoping to hit on some of these touch points so this way we can pull you in, get you playing, and get you to that point where you can interact with the Battletech community. So the first question, Fritz, you put up these splash images here with the vlogs, Battletech. Some hex maps, some not hex maps, some freeform. Like I thought Battletech was played on a grid or hex maps. So Battletech, this is the open sandbox of it. Battletech is designed to play on a hex map. And that hex map facilitates a couple of things. Facing. Mech facing is very, very important. When you shoot at a mech, the profile and the side that it's facing, the firing arcs of both attacker and defender, can determine what weapons are in play or literally where a hit will land on an opposing mech. So the fact that you have hexes, it lets you see, yes, you're in the firing arc. Yes, it's side armor. Yes, it's rear armor. It makes that navigation very, very easy. Hex maps also allow you to measure. Are you in range or are you out of range? Is it short range, medium range, long range? It's really, really easy to calculate and figure things out. Hex maps also have these numbers printed on it because that is literally the hex space. Now, on the one hand, if you play a bigger game, you could pause for the moment, write down what hexes the mechs are on, where they're facing, and revisit next week. But having those numbers are also important because sometimes you call in an artillery strike and you have to note ahead of time secretly where that artillery strike is going to come down. Other times you might have missions where something is hiding. You're hiding in a building, so you mark that hex down. There's some bookkeeping, some hidden or extra rule bookkeeping that allows you to utilize those numbers on the hexes. That's one way Battletech wants to play. And that's how a lot of us, myself included, play Battletech. The advantage of the hex maps, they're portable, they fold up, there's no questioning whether you're in range or out of range, and they come in a variety of styles, tactical styles. Open hills, woods, city, moons, other planets, all sorts of stuff. And you can go with the Catalyst maps, you can go with your own maps. There's an entire industry of people building their own maps that you could print out on small printouts, large printouts, but that's the idea of a hex map. Now, you've seen in some of my splash screens, I have a hex map that's like this, what is it, neoprene, kind of like the mouse pad material that has the hexes printed on it. And it's kind of like a generic green mudscape. I will then put 3D buildings on that. I will then put 3D terrain on that. You can play Battletech from a hybrid perspective. So I have the hex maps to facilitate movement and facing, but at the same time, now we have some 3D terrain that can interact. Light woods, medium woods, buildings, and things like that. You could play Battletech that way. Takes up a little more space, but still very, very doable. And then there are some pictures where we're playing on a traditional wargaming table. So there's no hexes in sight, 3D buildings, 3D everything. You can play Battletech from that perspective, but there's a couple of slight conversions that you have to make in terms of range. And with the facing of the mechs, you have the hex bases on the mech itself. You have to kind of measure out from there to see firing arcs. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out, sometimes it's a call. You might have to resolve that, where if you play on a traditional hex map, 100%. When I play, look, if you say it's in range and it's forward-facing or you're in the firing arc, you can shoot at me, go ahead and take it. Just go ahead and take it. If it's close, my house rule is if it's close enough or you believe it's so, then let's say it is and let's not hold up the game and let's see what happens. And if I lose the game because of that one shot, although look at his Battletech, I could be like, I took that PPC to the head. I mean, it could happen. But if I lose the game because of that one shot, then that's what the gods have determined in that moment. The lords of battle have determined. So you have 3 ways to play Battletech. When I travel to a club or it's a mixed-use gaming night where, we've got a bunch of tables set up, but I don't know the space that I'm going to have, I bring 1 box with the rules, 1 box with the mechs, 1 box with my hex maps. Very, very easy to transport. If I know we have more room, then we'll bring out the 3D table. We'll bring out the traditional wargaming table. But right away, lots of great different ways to play Battletech. Now on to the mechs themselves. Because unlike other wargaming systems that are out there that say you can't use older miniatures, you can only use the current ones, Battletech, you can use any of the miniatures. So right now we've got the plastic catalysts miniatures releasing. We've got long-supported Iron Wind Metals miniatures. But you have tons of miniatures 3D printed. You have other miniatures from other kind of like space robot, space opera games. You could bring those in as custom mechs. You've got mechs that were from other Battletech starter sets over the years. I mean, there's a lot of mechs that are out there. Generally speaking, they want to be mounted on a hex base. Do you have to mount them on a hex base? Technically, no, because you have the hex. If you're playing on a hex table, a hex map, then you kind of know. But having that hex base facilitates, okay, I move 1 movement point, I turn, that costs me a movement point, I move 2. It makes lining things up very, very easy. And of course, if you're playing on a non-hex map, then it really makes things necessary to play. But I wouldn't say that's a hard, fast rule, although 90% of Battletech is out there. With my clans, Jade Falcon, I based all of those on round poker chips. I play on a hex map. I have the hex. I have to do a little bit more calculation. I always add on the side of my opponent, whether they're in or not. If I play on a traditional wargaming table, I have to look at the facing a little bit more. And again, if I'm doing that, I always give it to my opponent to make the call. Should I put them on hexes? Yeah. Why did I put them on poker chips? I kind of wanted a more organic feel to it. And I was going to be playing a lot of battle armor, and I wanted the battle armor on there. So that was a decision. I've never gone somewhere and had someone say you can't play with those. It just means it's a little bit more of a calculation. So if you have older mechs from the starter sets that are on the half hex or no hex, then paint them up, use them. Maybe you rehex them. I was going to say rebase them. Maybe you keep them as they are. It's not going to stop you from playing the game. It's just a question of how you make those calculations and if there is an extra layer to making the calculations. So then we jump into Alpha Strike. Now, the history here, without diving into the rules, and I am summarizing a little bit. I'm not going to be able to capture everything because I want to make it through this Q&A. It used to be called Classic Battletech, or Battletech Classic Battletech. And Battletech in all its glory has some nuanced rules, takes a little bit while to play. You could play massive big games, I do, but they're involved. They take a while. That's the detailed level of Battletech. Alpha Strike was released as another way to play Battletech where things are more streamlined. The mechs still fight, but all the nuances of damage, internal damage, external damage, engine hits, critical hits, that's all been streamlined down to mech effectiveness. It was designed to not only play quicker, but allow you to play much, much larger games at a faster pace. My thought on Alpha Strike, it's probably 80-20 or 90-10, meaning most of the time I'm playing Battletech. It was called Classic Battletech, now we're calling it Battletech. Most of the time I play Battletech. I play Alpha Strike when the time permits. I would say jump into Battletech first, and then jump into Alpha Strike? Absolutely both, because they're set in the same narrative. It's the same mechs. It's the same models. And now you have the flexibility. I mean, regardless of the wargaming system, I want to get the most out of my models. I want you to get the most out of your models. With the same models, you can now play 2 different games. I will play Alpha Strike where sometimes we play Battletech, and however it goes, the game goes kind of quick, probably because I went for Tabletop Glory, screwed up, got crushed really bad, and now it's like, okay, well, the game's over and we still have an hour to go. What are we going to play? We can't really start a new, 8K battle value game with Battletech, but we could play some Alpha Strike. Or sometimes you want to run a little quick event at a club or a gaming group. You could run Alpha Strike. Or sometimes it's like, look, I've only got an hour to play Battletech, right? That's just how things are working out. Pull in some Alpha Strike. So that's the advantage of Alpha Strike versus Battletech. It plays quicker, it's streamlined, it's more geared towards bigger engagements that play fast. That's not to say with Alpha Strike you can't do a Lance versus Lance. That's not to say with Battletech you can't do massive games. I would say again, though, get into both. Absolutely. And if you like Alpha Strike, I mean, there's Alpha Strike community is massive. It's out there. It's far from a not played system. If you get into Alpha Strike and you decide, hey, this is awesome, I love it, well, you could always also jump into regular Battletech as you want to. And likewise, if you're like, well, I love regular Battletech, it's another way to enjoy the Battletech narrative. So this jumps into getting mechs on the table. We explored, I believe this morning or yesterday, as I said, I was going to post that immediately, some ideas of how to build a lance. So in most wargaming systems, outside of historical wargaming, which traditionally it's here's the battle scenario. It's not really fair. This is what you're trying to recreate to see could you make the same decisions and have the same thing happen. Battletech, of course, can be played that way. You can make custom scenarios, but Battletech works from the perspective of, like other war games, you agree to a point level ahead of time. You buy your toys. Maybe you have some agreements like, look, are we going to include air units or not? Are we going to include artillery or not? But what we choose to include or not, we're going to play with mechs and tanks. I make my toys, you take your toys, and then I like to have the great reveal. Usually on a side note, we'll agree the week before, okay, this week we're going to play 8K, combined arms, mechs. I agonize it over all week, what I'm going to play. Too many mechs, not enough battle value. I get everything ready the night before. That morning, usually at work, I'm like, I got to rewrite because what about this mech? Like if I get this mech in and I change that, it'll be awesome. But we show up to play. Then for fun, you pull out a mech and you put it on the table. And then I pull out a mech and I put it on the table. Not deployment yet, but we're like revealing forces where it's like, oh, look what I picked. Check out what I picked. Then you put out a mech. Then I'm like, oh yeah, check this out. So it's fun to have that reveal. That said, you usually build your force and bring it. I would say it's not the only one. There's 3 ways to build. The most proficient, or the one that will let you jump from group to group, is battle value. And again, I'm condensing and really generalizing because I don't want to get bogged down. But battle value is like the secret sauce formula that says based on the tonnage and the engine size and the weapons and the profile and everything, it's worth this many points. 637 points or 1,480 points. That's how much it costs to field that mech. And then you might make some adjustments based on other aspects of it. If we play 4,000 battle value, I can take as many mechs as I want up to that battle value. And sometimes maybe you'll be like, you could be 25 points over or under, or maybe you decide like, no, it's a hard cutoff. And then we can both show up with different forces, but at that same value. Now, there's also another system. It's not used as much. C-bills, credit bills. This idea that this is how much the mech costs in the game. So if you were playing from a role-playing perspective and you've got a couple of million, remember this is like 1980s. So, some mech costs like 2 million C-bills. And you're like, wait a second, like that $2 million is like what a helmet costs to fly like, whatever plane. This is 80s, prices. or futuristic prices that were not inflated like crazy. I guess the C-bill has a different currency to it. But the idea is this is how much it would physically cost to buy this mech if it was available. And that plays out from the role-playing perspective as you play your character or sell salvage. If you play in the campaign or the Chaos campaign of Battletech, you'll see where it's like you're a Merc commander and you got, 50 million C-bills. Buy your stuff. And it goes from mechs to ammos to tank to support units and everything from that perspective. You can also play Battletech that way. How much money do you have? It's not as tight as the battle value. Some things are a little bit wonky here and there, but you could play C-bills. I know people that do, but usually it's in connection with a Battletech campaign, pulling in all or parts of the role-playing system. The least used, and I say least used because there are players that do this, and I've done it from time to time. If we don't want to calculate the battle value, or we don't have that handy, just go by tonnage. Just go by tonnage. How much tonnage do you have? Subtract down from that. So there are lots of ways to play. I would say battle value, it's not perfect. It's the tightest, but that's why sometimes you'll see people that say, well, it's C-bills or it's tonnage. But there's no super really hard, fast rules with how we do that. Okay, last question. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll circle back around with some more. Fritz, okay, we've got the mechs. I've got my order in. It's looking good. I'm going to blame it on you because you said I could buy this stuff. I've got the vehicles. I understand the tanks. I understand the infantry. I understand air support. I get the artillery. What about these other vehicles that don't really seem to have a combat role on the table? I've seen some of the models. I've seen some of the rules, like the Mobile HQ, the Coolant Truck, scout cars. Like, what are they? Why would I take them? And why would I pay battle value, C-bills, tonnage for something that's not going to put out the damage? Counter on that, Battletech is complete combined arms. And the game does a great job in understanding all this. And it opens it up for tactics experimentally if you really want to go in that direction. And there's models for it, either official models or pulling in the appropriate scale, unofficial models. And the three we're going to look at. So Mobile HQ. Mobile HQ in the lore is literally a truck command center. I think of like Goliath from Knight Rider, where it's just this armored, fortified truck with some lasers, and inside is a complete command center and holographic stuff and command and control. The idea is one of these HQ trucks literally controls the battlefield commander. In the lore and narrative, they are so valuable and so powerful, Succession-era wars, that they will not be destroyed. And if they can be captured, that is a massive, massive win. Now they make the model, looks kind of cool. You can proxy a model. Why would you play it? It gives you some advantages depending on the rules that you play. So you pay the battle value, and while it's in play, it gives you a bonus to initiative, helps you win initiative every single turn. So there's little quirks with these vehicles that for that battle value buy-in, they give you a little something. Tactically, can you capitalize on that? Or do you say, look, I'm better off getting some more lasers on the table? Well, that's a decision in the narrative. Two other examples. A Coolant Truck. Coolant Truck is literally, it looks like a little futuristic fire engine for the official model, but you can model up anything you want. These are battlefield trucks that literally hook up to mechs to flush out the heat. So if there's a mech that's overheating, you can spray it down, hook it up. Is that really going to happen in a game that's mobile and moving and fast? Maybe not. But if you were attacker versus defender and you had a fortified position, maybe you've got a Coolant Truck zipping around. Maybe you're going to try some crazy tactica and deploy a Coolant Truck because you're paying battle value. These aren't free. You're paying the battle value. You're parking it next to your awesome. You're hooking it up. And that awesome is in City Fight. It's got a nice little bunker. It's got a fortified position. Or maybe you're hooking it up to your two longbows and you're firing heat free for every single turn. So it has that advantage. But again, flavor, fun. Tactically can utilize it. And the final piece, the Scout car, the Swift Wind Scout car. It's literally like this little futuristic zip car with a little radar dish on it, the official model. It's recon. It's zipping around so fast for so little battle value that you're going to try and discover hidden units. You're going to try and act as a spotter. You're going to act as something to get into position for mission objectives. Now, look, you could do the same with a Karnov. You could do the same with low battle value hover units. I mean, there's a lot of options in there. But in the lore, the companies selling this military hardware were like, we just need a fast, semi-armored car with a good communications array to literally act as a scout. Well, you can play that on the table. So those are examples where you have a whole literal host range of models and possibilities that are not combat oriented. I mean, the Command Mobile HQ does have, I think, a medium laser on it. Coolant Truck has a flamer. They have a little something, but the focus is not combat at all. The focus is in-game tactica, and tactica that asks the question, as a Battletech player, look, it's for fun. It's for fun. Can you pull it off? Can you do it? Or maybe sometimes you're just representing. I mean, I have played the Mobile HQ from time to time just to say that's where I am personally in the battlefield, controlling it, my avatar on the table, and I'm using it from a fun perspective. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. But it looks kind of neat on the table, and I've got the miniature. Let's play it. So really a lot of different ways to approach it. Okay, I'm going to push this up to the channel. I'll be monitoring the Q&A, and we're going to see how we can just jump in to this Battletech thing and try to make some sense and some positioning of some of the more obscure open sandbox pieces of Battletech.